I'd like to welcome Cheryl Frances-Hoad, a professional musician and composer, and we're going to see some of her work now before we speak to her. Wow, that was fantastic. Cheryl, tell us what we've just seen. What were those excerpts from?
So there were 3 clips just now. The first piece was a piece that I wrote for Professor Stephen Hawking's 75th birthday. A choral piece inspired by Stephen Hawking's work, so that was a bit terrifying. The second piece was a choral piece that I wrote for a fantastic choir called Sonoro. And that was set in Russian, which I don't speak, so that was a really interesting challenge that I've only wrote that a couple of years ago. And the final piece was a piece that I wrote for a fantastic young saxophonist called Jonathan Radford. And he won a big prize and he commissioned me to write a piece for him, which was very nice. Mainly because when I'd seen him give a concert, I had sent a tweet to him to say that was an amazing concert. And then he went and listened to my music and really liked it. And decided to ask me to write a piece for him.
That's a great story. So, so I take it you're a composer. Tell us, what's your title? What is your title, and what does it mean on a day-to-day basis? What do you?
So I just call myself a composer. Most people, when you say I'm a composer, they say, well, what do you write for? Do you write for TV or adverts? But so I mainly just write pieces for musicians to play in concert halls, in open air events, schools, lots of different places, but mainly for instruments that you don't plug in. I can write for any instrument that you don't plug in. The last 6 months I've actually been learning how to write music for stuff that you do plug in, so electronic music. So but until that point, so I've written string quartets, solo piano pieces, orchestral pieces, and lots of songs and lots of choral pieces. And basically I spend most of my day here. When I'm working hard, I spend all of my day here at my piano. I have my computer here. It's just a cheap old drawing board that I have up on my piano so I can fit all my manuscript paper. And then I have my computer here where I type up the music that I've worked out behind me.
Wow.
You
arrive at being a composer. So how did you get to this point how did you become a composer? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm 39 now, and I've been a full-time composer doing nothing else for about 8 years now. So until this point, until that point, I needed to do other things to support myself. They're all musically related. I started when I was very young. I started playing the cello, and I loved performing, but I always started sort of making things up whenever I was practicing. And basically, it's really bizarre to look back now, because I decided when I was young, I planned to do my GCSEs and then become a touring musician. And sort of now looking back, I then stayed on. I did 7 years of postgraduate study, so my life turned out quite differently to how I thought it would be. Because when I was about 15, I'd been writing a lot until that point, but I had a massive massively fantastic opportunity with composing. I had an orchestra play my work, and I still remember standing in front of that orchestra and realizing that that was what I had to do.
Wow.
And at the same point, I sort of I developed really bad stage fright. So everything with composing sort of went up, and everything with performing sort of went down. And I just I was very lucky. So when I was 15, I won a competition that started people asking me to write stuff.
That's really fascinating, because many of our guests in the past have said that the talent, hard work are really important, essential to a successful career. But many people have said that actually there's also an element of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. So this piece that I wrote, it was a concerto for cello and orchestra. And it's still running now, BBC Young Composer, in a slightly different format, but way back in 1996, I entered it and I wrote this piece. And I was just at home with my mum. My mum literally took the score and chased the postman down the road to post the score off, because I just finished it by the deadline. And then it got selected. And so I was 15, and I went off with my mum to Manchester because I couldn't go by myself because I was under 16, and just had this. It still makes the hairs on the back of my neck rise, remembering that experience, and hearing the music that had been in my head, and sort of in this environment where you're just playing it on the piano, played by like 80 musicians, and if I hadn't have, if I'd have missed that deadline, it would have never have happened.
Amazing. So tell us, so from this amazing opportunity at 15, 16, did you pursue a formal route? Did you do a music degree? What did you do after?
Yeah. So I have done a very, very formal route. But I have lots of friends who haven't. So I have, I always feel slightly self-conscious talking about this, because I started when I was 8. So I went to a music school. So I'm from a single parent family, and I got good at the cello quite quickly. And my mum just took me off to the Yehudi Menyon School for an audition to see whether they thought I was any good, because she was a flute teacher and she knew that I was improving quickly. But they decided to offer me a place at this school. At the time, there were 36 children from all over the world. Wow. They actually, the first term that I went there, they gave my mother some money. So it was all paid for by grants, because she'd just lost her job. And so I had this amazing sort of 10-year stretch at that school, which had its trying aspects, but for my performing was amazing. Wow. But I hardly had any formal education. Basically, I did 6 GCSEs and 2 A-levels. And I'm so embarrassed about that, because I know everybody else is doing like 18. And
that's not the case. But
I even split my A-levels up, so I did 1 a year, because I was composing and practicing. And so I was determined to get a bit of an academic education after that. So I went to Cambridge for 4 years. I did a BA in just music, and then a MA in composition. And then I went to King's College London to do a PhD in composition, which took me, well, it was supposed to take me 3 years, but I took 4 years over it. So I've had an incredibly classical, sort of rigorous training, and I'm really happy about that, and I'm really glad of it. But having said that, I have lots of peers who, one friend in particular, she hadn't heard classical music until she was 15, and she was just amazed by it. And she came in, late compared to me, and she's having a wonderful career now. So it's there are certain things in composing that you really have to know, but there are many routes into it.
The great thing is that seemingly with our other guests, that there are many routes. Yeah. And I think the common theme seems to be about practice, about dedication, application, about maintaining that interest and a level of interest. And, and to an extent, also there's an element of luck. But I think probably people have lucky opportunities and don't embrace them. I think we all have luck at times. So making the most of opportunity seems to be a common thread.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you tell us something about, obviously it sounds to me like you've got a really exciting career, sounds wonderful. So what are the best things about what you do? And then maybe one or two things that are less good or more challenging about, no one has a perfect career, I'm sure they don't, but it sounds really exciting. So tell us what are the great things about what you do, and maybe share with us one or two of the challenges you face in your career.
Sure. I mean, one of the best things is that I get to do what I love to my own timetable at home, whenever I want, and that happens to suit me personally very well. So I have friends who are opera singers and performers who say, Cheryl, if I had your life, I would go completely mad within a month, because I just wouldn't be able to cope, like motivating myself, being at home by myself all the time. But it happens to really, really suit me. I think the wonderful thing for me is, so let's think about the last few pieces I've written. I'm just writing some songs for a wonderful soprano called Carolyn Sampson at the moment, and for that project I got to commission new poetry from Sophie Rashbrook. She's a fabulous young poet, so I'm getting to collaborate with really fabulous, exciting people, and I get to choose what I want to do. So this song cycle, it's a gothic tale about a character called Melmoth, who is condemned to walk the earth forever and ever, and she persuades people to join her to stop her from becoming lonely. And I came up with this project because I read a book about this character, and I thought that would make a fabulous song cycle. So I asked Sophie to read the book, and she said, yes, I think that's a great idea. I asked the festival that I'm writing this piece for, is that all right? So basically I've sort of shaped my 3 months work here, and I'm just doing something that fascinates me, and I love it. And I think, basically I probably spend in normal times, I probably spend 80% of my time here. And then, so I'm based in Bedford, and a lot of time I have a lot of, meetings in London. So that's basically sort of, ends up happening like that. And basically I get to have lots of cups of coffee with really fantastic people talking about really exciting projects and getting really excited about things. The downside is that it doesn't just happen like that. This song cycle that I'm writing, it's a dream. It's for a festival of singing called the Oxford Leader Festival. And I've been commissioned, and they've said, look, here's the money, sign this contract, write this piece, jobs are good. A lot of times I have to spend a lot of my time filling in funding applications, which luckily, because I think I should have been a librarian in a different life, I actually really enjoy, but that's very weird. So sort of moving on to the downsides, it's really tough to make a living, and I'm what I would say as sort of comfortable now, but I'm not. There's no way that I'm having expensive holidays or buying expensive clothes and things like that. So you have to be. It's not it's not the way to get very rich necessarily, although some people do. Organising your time is really hard. So being motivated, getting up when getting up to finish a piece when you've got a month ahead of you, with nobody to say, how's it going? Oh, that looks really good. So where are you? So I have to be super organized with my time, and I find that quite difficult. It's really hard to be motivated to sort of get up every morning and say, right, I'm going to sit at my desk at this time and I'm going to work. So sort of managing distractions is really hard. So this is really embarrassing, but because I find the internet really addictive, I actually have software on my computer that blocks the internet for 7 hours a day. So I am forced to concentrate on my work.
Well, I think many people watching this video will actually empathise with that. They probably won't know it yet. But, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it's also a great consumer of time.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
It can be very lonely. I have a lot of friends who find it very difficult, even though they. Yes. What other downsides? I mean, yes, it's incredibly hard work, and I spend a lot of time trying to make projects happen that don't necessarily happen. And I have to raise a lot of my own money through applications like that, and it's, you know, it's exhausting. I do my website, so often when I've done, you know, a day's composing, I then have to go and update my website. I have to answer all my emails. You know, I end up working sort of late into the night and boring stuff like that. You know, really quite often. Other negatives.
I think what's interesting is that I think many young people perhaps watching this will think that you play music all the time. You can,
yeah.
But it's very interesting, that notion that in the future people have to apply for funds themselves.
Yeah.
Negotiate, have to collaborate. And I think so I'll phrase it a question. What do you think, what personal qualities do you think are needed to follow this sort of the career you've had? Are there personal qualities that are required if young people are interested in this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to love, you know, absolutely love what you're going to do, and you have to, and you know, it helps if you're good at it. But I mean, for me, the biggest quality has been just never giving up, like sheer bloody mindedness, you know, just really. I mean, one of the negatives is when you get bad reviews for things, it's absolutely soul destroying, and the ability to pick yourself up from that. You know, so you have to be. It's not. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've had lots of opportunities, and I've done well. But even still, just to sort of pick yourself up from rejections.
So resilience to that sort of thing, maybe.
It's tremendous resilience, and I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a competition called the Royal Philharmonic Society competition, and I entered it, I think, either 11 or 13 times before I won it, and then I did win it, and then it led to a big commission. It would have been easy to give up, you know. I think you have to have really, really good organizational skills and realize what your weaknesses are. So, like, for instance, like me knowing that the internet is addictive for me, so I have to say, right, Cheryl, you know, I'm going to do something constructive to not let me waste my time like that. Lots of people go on about sort of networking abilities and you know, doing that, and that is really important. I've been very lucky because I went to this school for musicians. A lot of my first performances and commissions were by my friends, you know, so I've had it easy. And if you're not starting from sharing a room with a fabulous violinist, you know, you've got to get yourself out there a bit more and sort of network and you know, and put yourself out there. And I used to be sort of chronically shy, sort of literally sort of hiding from people when I was younger, and so I found person-to-person networking really, really hard. I just didn't do it. But what I would do is send out lots of letters and competitions and applications. I was able to say how fabulous I was in a printed piece of paper or in an email. I just found it very difficult in person.
That's really, this is fascinating. Yeah. And I'm sure if people are interested in asking a question of Cheryl, then look at the link below and you can ask a question. I'm hoping, Joe, that you're going to be able to join us for the panel discussion with our other guests and continue this. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really fantastic. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks.